What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 108 of the Finale podcast. Today I'm joined by Cittilad and Tyler to preview week 17 of the NFL season. Guys, how's it going?
Doing good.
They're going good.
Merry
How was
Christmas.
how was the Christmas celebration, man?
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, real good.
Time to
Spent
be
a
with
lot of time
family.
with the fam.
Oh yeah.
How about you?
Oh yeah, it was all right, man. Can't complain. Spent time with the family as well. So
Mm.
that's always good. Back in Minnesota, being around family and friends. Saw Cittilad for a movie that his name I can't recall. Lion King, Mufasa Lion King. That was good.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's been a good time so far being back here in Minnesota. But you
Solid.
know, let's get into the episode though. Let's start off with the biggest takeaway from Week 16 and or Christmas Day football yesterday.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from last week's football games were um definitely the Commanders could definitely, close out a game. I feel like Jaden Daniels is real deal coming, towards playoff time. But yeah, just his ability to come back from, two score down in the third and making it happen and then just not giving up. Like to see that from a rookie quarterback. Um, just them playing hard, definitely through a divisional rivalry, and then them possibly securing the seventh seed,
Hmm.
I believe, after this afternoon because they're playing that Sunday night against Atlanta, so they might sit out for the remainder of the game, depending on how their seeding goes in their predicament. But also
Mhm.
the Bucks, I think they're easily exposed as well. Just Baker's carelessness with the football and their ability not to close out games, but it's just inconsistency with Baker. But he can give you three for 300 or 160 for one pick or a couple picks and zero touchdowns. But yeah, um, I feel like they'll lock down the NFC South with the fourth seed. So and then
Who are the Bucks?
that's about it. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
because I feel like Atlanta will lose this Sunday night. So
Hmm. Okay.
yeah, that's
Okay.
about it. Yesterday's games, um, they were all right, pretty boring, but yeah,
Mm.
um, Chiefs might get exposed in the playoffs, but and then Ravens, they're a sleeper in the media world. Lamar, sneaky MVP, but I feel like that's my leading candidate in the MVP race.
Hmm.
And then CJ Stroud, the sophomore slump,
Yeah.
as they say, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
been terrible. But what can you do? So
Too much time podcasting in the off season.
hmm
Mhm.
Um, yeah, my takeaway from last week is probably a pretty obvious one, but I think it's safe to say that Cousins' time in Atlanta is officially over. Um, I mean, it was against the Giants, but Falcons just absolutely steamrolled them. Penix looks comfortable, you know, kind of the perfect time for them to transition at quarterback. And I mean, I think we talked about it briefly. I don't remember if that was just in the group chat or if that was on the last podcast, but um, what's next for Cousins? Who's to say going forward? But I think it's definitely safe to say he's played his last snap after their performance last week. Um, I also just wanted to mention Panthers have been playing very good football lately. You know, they've been really competitive with a lot of really good teams. Um, and I think it's just Bryce Young finally getting a little more comfortable with that role as QB there. So as far as the Christmas games go, the only thing I think really to talk about is Chiefs clinched the one seed with their win. So could matter for some of the games going forward. Definitely will matter come playoff time with the matchups now. So also I think it's safe to talk about potential three-peat. You know,
Mm.
a lot of threats out there in the league, but I think it's definitely a possibility. I know everyone's always talking about they're underperforming, but I mean, how do you argue the best record in the league at this point? So definitely something to watch for. Ravens Texans. 2 points is almost worse than zero, honestly.
Hmm.
Just embarrassing performance from them. Uh, and yeah, I think it's safe to talk about the Ravens being a legit contender as well. Probably probably the biggest threat to the Chiefs at this point in the AFC. So, and yeah, I think it's definitely Lamar Jackson's MVP race to lose. I mean, it was pretty close between him and Josh Allen, but after last week, I don't know. I think he's in the lead at this point.
Yeah, definitely a good battle going on between them. I wanted to go back to Sid last point because I was also gonna touch on the Commanders. So they haven't won a playoff game. Like the organization hasn't won a playoff game since 2005. So with the way they've been, playing in these games this season, do you guys think that the Commanders are able to win a playoff game in the wild card?
They'd play.
Say they go back and play Philly again.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can see that happening. It's just them wanting it more than Philly, I guess. I guess probably Philly let their guard down, in Washington. That's why they were able to, choke their lead per se, even though Saquon went crazy, but also the fact that Jalen Hurts got hurt.
Hmm.
So that's their excuse for, taking the L, but also, the defense, just let up, losing, 14-point advantage. But also, yeah, I like to see him running it back in the first round in Philly. Like, that'll be a good matchup. But I feel like Jaden, you know, I think he'll take that pressure. I think he'll
Yeah,
handle that pressure. So
I think so too. I think it'd be interesting just because, whenever there's a time where that three divisional matchups in a year, you never know what's going to happen in that third one. And in Philly, they didn't really, I don't think it was too competitive when they played, but obviously last week it was pretty competitive until the end. And, the Eagles still had a chance to win that game. But I just feel like it'd be a good test to see where the Commanders are at. But they obviously could get higher than that. They're only a game behind the Packers, and the Packers are playing the Vikings this week. So, that's really a toss up where they finish. They could go all the way to the sixth seed, but that end up with them playing the Rams or something like that. So you never know. But I mean,
mhm.
they've been playing really well. So I'd like to see that matchup for sure with the divisional matchup. But my other takeaway that I want to have is Sam Darnold continues to play at a really high level, and I feel like people have been assuming that the Vikings aren't gonna try to bring him back and be competitive in that market for him in terms of like the bidding wars and everything like that because he's going to be the top quarterback on the market this free agency period. But I don't think it's so sure with the way he's been playing this year and the uncertainty surrounding JJ McCarthy at this point. I think a lot of people just assume that JJ McCarthy can fit into Kevin O'Connell's offense. He can just make any quarterback look good. But I don't think that's the case. It took a lot of time for Sam Darnold to be really good, so I think he deserves some credit, not just on KOC. And JJ McCarthy, yeah, he played really well in the match that he showed us against I forgot who it was. I want to say the Raiders, but
Mhm.
it's not a guarantee that he's just going to be this revelation next year and take over and continue to meet the standard that's now set in Minnesota with them being a 13-win team at this point in the season. So I feel like the Vikings might actually be competitive in the market considering they have the ability to do so this year without these big contracts on their books. So they could, offer the franchise tag. They could give him a multi-year contract and, let JJ McCarthy sort of sit back, develop, and actually, take a couple of years. But I think, yeah, that's just my takeaway from that. I don't think that's the type of quarterback where you just let him walk and not try to really go for him. It's not like you have many options outside of Sam Darnold. Whereas I remember in 2017, the Vikings didn't really give it an effort to look into bringing back Case Keenum. I think this is a much different case because you have a rookie quarterback. Obviously, he's the future, but you know, with the way Sam Darnold's playing, you might want to give him that multi-year deal as well.
Yeah, to add on that, you think Sam? would be seeking, more, you know, to his, worth to seek elsewhere than playing with the Vikings. The Vikings, I think they'll be wise to keep him also for that veteran, ability to train and, mentor JJ, but also them signing Daniel Jones, I think, was a backup just in case Sam got hurt during, his tenure right now. But you think it's also that if keeping Sam and also developing JJ, you think JJ will have that mentality of the Josh Rosen, effect when they drafted, you know, Kyler, like, but
I
Josh was just, his own situation. But yeah,
yeah,
just Sam playing lights out, but also the system, you know what I mean? Just
100%.
like JJ,
That's
he was performing really well in the preseason against the Raiders. You saw that his ability to make throws under pressure and run and scramble. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, they're just two different players. But yeah, I feel like KOC can make it work with anybody except for
yeah. I mean, he just needs a certain skill set, I would say. We obviously saw last year he couldn't make it work with those two
mhm,
guys, but I think JJ McCarthy is obviously the sort of guy he pinpointed in the draft. I think he either wanted Drake May or JJ McCarthy. So I think those are the type of profiles that he goes for, and obviously got his guy long term that he wants. But like I said last pod, I think he actually saw that Sam Darnold could be doing exactly what he's doing when he gave him, that contract, when the Vikings gave him that contract. So I don't think it's a surprise to Kevin O'Connell because he saw what was going to happen. I think before a lot of people actually saw it. But there were some people who did expect Sam Darnold coming into the season to be the next Baker Mayfield, Junior Smith, just because of the situation. I mean, it's a quarterback's
Mhm.
dream to have a top tight end, a top receiver duo, and a top running back. That's a quarterback's dream. So you'd think anybody could flourish with that, but as was the case last year, that's not exactly true. So I think it's just a really good situation. Obviously, he's going to want to do what's in his best interest and test the market and go for the guarantees and all that. I understand it from that perspective, but it's clear that Minnesota's the best situation for him. I think Minnesota has to, kind of be respectful in the negotiations as well, not lowball him because, you know, uh, Sam Darnold probably believes in his skill set that he can do it anywhere at this point in his career. He probably feels like he's learned a lot over the last couple of years that, it could translate, and he's not just in this box that maybe you would see him in now when he's in Minnesota with all these guys around him. Maybe he does feel like he can flourish with, lackluster talent. But yeah, I think the Vikings are gonna be competitive for sure. A much different situation with JJ and Josh Rosen. I think that's just not a great organization to get drafted to, especially at the time. And you can argue even at this point as well. With Kyler Murray's lack of development, I would say. But just in general, I don't think the Vikings would even look to do anything like that where. Uh, Sam Darnold is out of here. I think Sam Darnold's going to eventually, not Sam Darnold, but JJ McCarthy's out of here. I think JJ McCarthy's going to get his time, but it's going to come at a later time than we all expected. But who knows? Because I feel like the Vikings might have even saw this situation coming, where if Sam Darnold did play well this year, they would have sidelined JJ for a couple of years. I think that could have also been something they thought about. But I like JJ McCarthy's skill set. I want to see him, but you don't want to force him in there either. Like let's say we re-sign Sam Darnold and we feel like he has one bad game and we're just like calling on the coach to bring in JJ. I don't want it to be like that either.
mhm.
So I feel like we just got to commit to one or the other and then really bring in JJ at the right time. But yeah, I want to just see them go after Sam Darnold for sure because I mean he's gonna be commanding a lot of money for sure this offseason. So yeah.
What
Yeah.
what was what do you think Kansas City, saw in Patrick Mahomes after his 1 year of sitting out behind Alex Smith and him starting the year afterwards?
Shoot. I mean, I couldn't tell you what they saw. He was on the bench, but I mean, he's
And
obviously
nobody knew
showed.
about him, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Even 2017 draft, he was drafted,
exactly. He was
10th
kind of like a
overall.
under the radar guy. I know he had
Hmm.
those battles with Baker Mayfield in college, but I mean, honestly, I imagine he learned. He'd probably say that he learned from Alex Smith and just being in that offense as well. It's a really good environment. We've seen who was that quarterback that won them a playoff game when Mahomes got hurt,
Chad
like,
Henne.
and he's come in. I remember against the Vikings, he came in and beat us too. So I think just that
Mhm.
system of being with the Andy Reid offense, we haven't really seen many quarterbacks that haven't done well with him. So I think that's part of it. And then also, uh, right now, even though Mahomes might not be putting up the best numbers, as maybe earlier in his career, and definitely not, as I guess in that same conversation for MVP as Lamar and Josh Allen have been over the last couple of years, he's still winning games, and that's the biggest difference, and the difference between these other quarterbacks who are putting up really good stats, like even Joe Burrow, but he's getting it done as well. So I think he just knows how to win, and they probably just saw that in him and that competitiveness. I'm gonna imagine. So I think it's sort of a similar thing where uh, the Vikings probably saw that in JJ McCarthy, and with his ability to win a lot in Michigan. So I think it's a sort of thing that they see translating to the NFL. So I feel like with the Chiefs, I think they actually targeted Mahomes. They could have got for some reason the
Trubisky.
Bears yeah, for some reason the Bears wanted Trubisky and they traded up, but they could have either even got Deshaun Watson.
Mahomes. Yeah.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson's right there, right pick before him or something like that. So I mean that was the range that they were in. They were actually trying to get Mahomes, so it just shows you like just being patient. But I don't know. Guess the Bears got the short end of the stick there, obviously. But hey,
Mhm.
man, good organizations just know what to do when it comes to drafting.
I will say, going along with that too, um, Patrick Mahomes ended up being Patrick Mahomes. If he ended up being a bum, it would be a whole different conversation. But
Mhm.
because he stepped in and was Patrick Mahomes that we know today, like it was a genius move. Um,
Hmm.
though here's the thing though, he wasn't stepping into a situation that was previously 14-2. Like we're hoping JJ McCarthy can come in and be as good as Sam Darnold has been this year. And as much as obviously I think that can happen, and I just as much as you guys trust Coach O'Connell to make it happen with pretty much anybody, just given the system. There is that chance that it doesn't, and he starts for us next year, and we win 5 games on the year, and then what's the conversation? Jefferson wants out, all this other stuff happening. Like we're pretty much rolling the dice in the off chance that he can be as good as what we have proven right now. And until Sam Darnold shows us that he doesn't deserve that starting job, then yeah, I absolutely agree. I think we should be the lead runners and going after him this offseason and bringing him back.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen it from all these rookie quarterbacks this year. They've had really high moments, but then they've also had those rookie wall moments. Even Jaden Daniels has gone through it. Bo Nix
Mm-hmm.
as well, kind of at this point. So I feel like that's inevitable when it comes to JJ McCarthy's rookie year. We saw it last year with Jordan Love. First half of the season, for sure, just wasn't looking that good. He was a completely different quarterback the first time the Vikings played him compared to that late season game where he just looked like he was in his groove and obviously led to a playoff win for them and even almost going further. But I think it's going to be inevitable that there'll be a little bit of a drop off if JJ McCarthy is the starter next year. But I don't know if I can see that scenario where it's just like he's been out all year. It's not like I haven't even seen him much on the sideline if he's even been there. So it's like he's just been out of the loop, and then being the starter next year, it's kind of hard for me to see how that plays out. So
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to give a valiant effort with Sam Darnold because when you have something that good, regardless of what happens in the playoffs, I think that's somebody you want to pursue, but you also want to make sure it's in the best interest of the organization and doesn't put you in a hole, kind of like at times it felt like with Kirk Cousins, where just that contract was lingering and affecting their team building ability. Now the Vikings are in a situation where they can really build out their team without those big contracts like Kirk Cousins and Daniel Hunter had. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously you want to manage both things. It's ideal to have a rookie quarterback or like a quarterback on a rookie contract like the 49ers had with Brock Purdy and all those weapons, and you're not paying Brock Purdy a bunch of money, but eventually, now Brock Purdy's demanding like 60 million or something like that. So it's like at some point you're gonna have to pay these guys, and that's the problem at that point. But at this point, the short-term current situation is just maximizing this year, making the most out of it, But I think when it comes to free agency, for sure, you already have him in your building. So I think they should have those conversations soon and be like, "Hey, man, you're a guy that we want around here, and extend that contract." Because I just think it's a perfect match. But he's obviously going to go, I would say, to the highest bidder. I don't see a quarterback like him where he hasn't really found that big contract yet, or even that stable place, taking a short, not a shortcut, but a pay cut. And I feel like Minnesota is just a good match for him. I think a 2-year deal will even be enough. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. We've seen the Atlanta Falcons already, like Tyler mentioned, benching Kirk Cousins. So it's like if Sam Darnold just has a terrible stretch of a season, JJ McCarthy can come in. So
Mhm.
I just think it's in the best interest of the organization to give it a fair shot with this guy.
Not to mention, I've used this example before, but the Jordan Love situation, just
Hmm.
sitting behind a solidified quarterback and learning the game and then stepping in at the perfect time and just being absolutely ready, you know, because we're seeing some quarterbacks being thrown into situations. We've seen it all year where they're just thrown in and expected to carry this garbage franchise out of where they are into the promised land, and it's just not happening. And it's not the right situation. It's not the right timing for them to step into that role. So it might be better for his own interest, especially coming off of a pretty rough injury. So
Yeah, and it's pretty likely that even if JJ McCarthy was healthy, that the Vikings weren't even going to play him at all this year. I think that's a pretty high
especially with
likelihood.
how Sam's been playing, I mean, he wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I don't see a point where he would have went in.
I think
Yeah,
maybe after that one game, I think the Jaguars game, maybe fans would be like, put in JJ. But I think overall
yeah,
Even
KSU's
still,
plan, yeah, KSU's plan is probably to stick with Sam, and it's paid off.
mhm.
But let's get into these NFL topics we have. A couple for today. The first one, Christmas Day NFL slate. Personal thoughts. I think it was kind of underwhelming. You know, coming into these matchups, I just didn't think it was going to be that good with the teams that were playing. Obviously, they played um, on Saturday. I think it was Texans on Saturday against
Chiefs.
Chiefs. Yeah, and then that's Tank Dell injury happened, and then Texans played the Ravens, and then Chiefs Steelers yesterday, and then yeah, they just swapped the order basically. I think
Yeah, they
honestly,
swept up.
I feel like when it comes to Thanksgiving games, I get Lions Cowboys tradition, keep them there every single year. Even when the Lions sucked, they were always there. Cowboys this year they sucked, still kept them there. But I think when it comes to Christmas games, um, I feel like you have to have the option where you can just flex those games because there's just some teams that shouldn't be on there if you're truly trying to compete for that spot with the NBA. There's a lot of good teams this year. Could have seen a lot of good football, especially this week already. And then these teams kind of, I don't know how many rest days they had, but it doesn't seem like they had too many with Saturday and then traveling on Tuesday. I don't know. It just didn't seem like a great,
Yeah, the Texans played 3 games within 10 days in the last two
yeah.
weeks.
Scheduling wise, it didn't seem ideal. I think coming into the year probably just looked like a really good matchup with the Texans. Obviously, having a lot of primetime games this season
Mhm.
hasn't really paid off with how they've looked at all. I mean, this whole season, just they're leading the AFC South, but that's not saying too much. And I could still see them win a playoff game because they'll be at home like they were last year. But at the end of the day, it's just not been entertaining football from them at all this season. The Chiefs, they're not a great team to watch, but I mean, they played good yesterday for sure. The Steelers, they've kind of, it was like, what was that
Mhm.
one year where the Steelers were like 11-0 and then they just hit rock bottom almost?
2020.
Yeah, it's kind of feeling like they're at that point right now where I'm just like, okay,
And so
yeah,
wasn't that the Chase Claypool year where he
yeah,
like
Mm-hmm.
tweeted something
COVID.
and then they like crazy lost losing streak?
yep. So I think that's kind of hit them right now where it's just like, okay, this team might have hit their ceiling already, might have overachieved, honestly. Um,
Mhm.
and then the Ravens, I mean, they're dominating the Texans. It just didn't seem like a match. They played
Mhm.
last year in the playoffs. wasn't even close. So I feel like that's just
Ugly
not a
game.
it's not a great matchup for the Texans. But yeah, I feel like the Christmas Day slate wasn't the best, and maybe they should look into in the future flexing those games out. I know the NBA doesn't do that because a lot of people complain about the Thunder and the Grizzlies and some teams like the Bucks not being there on Christmas Day, but you can't complain. The NBA games were all close yesterday. Maybe not the 9 o'clock game with the Nuggets and Suns, but Timberwolves, Mavs, Spurs, Knicks, Lakers, Warriors. I mean, Boston and Philly, like those games were all
Hmm.
close, you know. So I feel like if
Absolutely.
you really want to compete, you gotta compete. You gotta put out your best hunters, pretty much. You know, put out the Lions, put out the Eagles, put out those teams that
With the
are playing
Vikings.
really. Put out the Vikings. Yeah, I don't even want to, you know.
Yeah, meaningful games. Meaningful
Yeah,
games.
exactly. And like LeBron said,
Play.
until
Yeah,
what did
games with
LeBron say yesterday,
implications. You
right?
know.
He said I love the NFL, but Christmas is our day. You
Yeah,
gotta if you really want to compete, and I think even on viewership they might be able to have really good viewership numbers because it was on Netflix and everything. So I think from that standpoint it might be similar in viewership. But I feel like we all
yeah,
can
they
kind of
broke streaming records.
yeah, we can all kind of see like when it comes to the games, it wasn't entertaining whatsoever. So, and I'm sure I think there were streaming problems too with Netflix, and there also was with Netflix. They had another live event. I think it was a fight. I'm
Jake
not
Paul,
sure. Jake Paul. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mike
So
the
Tyson.
Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight.
yeah. So I think people are kind of fed up with that too. So yeah, the NFL
That
probably has
was
to come
brutal.
better next time.
Yeah.
And as good as that one game was when Alvin Kamara had 6 touchdowns versus the Vikings, that also wasn't a great game to watch. I would say from a neutral
No.
perspective. Yeah, the Vikings sucked that year. I think that was
Yeah.
Zimmer's last year or something. But yeah, how about you guys? What do you guys think of that? I mean, did you guys watch the games at all? I know you guys didn't uh, didn't
Uh,
didn't say you did, but
I watched a little bit.
Chiefs. I did
Um,
not. Ravens. I watched halftime. I think I shut it off after.
Beyonce.
I think so.
yeah, I watched the first half of that one too. I watched a bit of the Chiefs Steelers, but just wasn't really paying attention once the fourth quarter came around. Steelers were
Hmm.
making it kind of interesting, but Chiefs offense was just too much end of the day. Um, I think Steelers, they've been all right this year, but like you said, I think their time's kind of just coming to an end here. Kind of running out of momentum going into the playoffs, which isn't a great time to do so.
Yeah, they could be playing the Texans in that 5-4 matchup if the Steelers are the fifth seed. So, who do you guys
Yeah.
think would win that one?
The refs.
After yesterday, I don't
To,
know.
to the refs. Yeah, I know. I think it's a toss-up, honestly, because I think the Browns were favored against the Texans last year in the playoffs. They're a really good 5 seed
Flacco.
team, but Flacco, it was a toss up
He's
with
gonna do
Flacco
what he's
all
gonna
year.
do.
Yeah, he would have those games last year where he just 300 yards, 0 picks. Then he'd have those 3 interception games, and just
It
happened to be one of those days.
Mhm.
is what it is.
Any
But
given Sunday.
yeah, like I said, man, I think at home it's a toss up because they do look better at home. I mean, outside of yesterday, and I think they beat the Bills at home this year, so I feel like it's a little bit tougher. But last year they kind of dealt with a similar circumstance with Tank Dell being out and Nico Collins kind of being that lone guy out there. So I think if the Steelers defense comes to play and they show their best, I think the Steelers have it. But they're a team that's I don't know when the last time the Steelers won a playoff game, so they're kind of looking for that as well. It's been a while for them. And Vikings Packers. Let's move on to that. Um, Big time game this week, of course.
Hmm.
Both teams have a lot to play for. Like we mentioned earlier with the Commanders, that win for the Commanders put some more pressure on the Packers to win this game here, and they're also potentially with the Vikings losing these last 2 games, which is very possible. The Packers could move up to the 5 seed, pushing the Vikings back to the 6. With the tiebreaker because I can't remember. I think there's a. It's been a while, I want to say, since one of these teams has ever swept the regular season series. it's always flip flop or
In
something like that.
2020, I think it was.
2020 was it? Okay, I can't remember who swept it, but yeah, the Vikings seem to have the Packers numbers at Lambeau, but the Packers, man, they come into US Bank Stadium playing really well. And obviously, they're a
Hmm.
team that had the first shutout of the regular season on Monday night. I don't know
Yeah, their
if
defense
that's
has been
saying
great.
much, but yeah, their defense is really good. Xavier McKinney's clearly made a difference, and they're even doing all this without Jair.
Mhm.
And then offensively, Josh Jacobs. I mean, yeah, man,
Ooh,
he wanted that playoff football. Now he's got it in Green Bay. He's gonna get used to that for sure. And yeah, that run game is just a difference maker. They had it last year, of course, with Aaron Jones, and we see what Aaron Jones is doing in
Mhm.
Minnesota. I think I can't remember what happened in the first matchup, but it didn't seem like Josh Jacobs had the best day. So the Vikings
Mhm.
run defense has been pretty good this year, so that's a key matchup to look at. And then
top three.
yeah, the number of receivers can hurt you with the Packers. Really don't know where it's coming from, so all those guys have to be you know on their P's and Q's with that. And then Jordan Love, I think he's the type of quarterback where when he's hot, it's hard to stop, but he's
Hmm.
also the type of quarterback where you can't get a turnover, and that's definitely a momentum builder. And the Vikings turned him over a few times in their earlier matchup. I want to hopefully see that continue. But yeah, what are you guys expecting to see in this game?
I think it's a shootout, just the way how both our teams are consistent, but also both teams are moving week by week with their momentum, winning games after games, especially close ones are, by blowouts. But it's going to be a divisional game, so playing for a good playoff seeding. But yeah, I expect a shootout, but also their defense has really been, picking it up throughout the season. But also, I think they're slept on, the most slept on defense, I'd say, with that secondary. Um, it all depends if Jair is playing too. You know what I mean? He's kind of on and off every other week, but yeah, if Jordan Love gets hot, it's gonna be hard to stop him. But also them, if they exploit our run defense, it's gonna be a hard day too. Because they'll come in here thinking that they're not gonna be able to run the ball, and then Josh Jacobs might go for 150. But I expect a shootout. But I feel like it's gonna come to a 2 minute warning drive from either team.
Yeah, I can see that too. It's interesting because both these teams have really good offenses, and then both these teams have really good defenses as well. They're also good
Hmm.
against the run. We saw earlier in the season, Aaron Jones kind of struggled to get something going in that matchup. So I feel like it's really a toss up, like you said. But it's a big time matchup. Got flexed to 3 o'clock, and I think Tom Brady's commentating too, man. So you know
Hmm.
they got the big dogs for this game. It's going to be
Pulling
interesting for
up.
sure. Yeah. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to come down to just Vikings offense versus the Packers defense. Arguably the best defense in football over the last few weeks, especially after that shutout. Darnold has been great, but he does take a lot of sacks. That could be an issue against this pass rush. I think if we can avoid sacks, get the ball out early to Jefferson, coming off of best game of the year,
Hmm.
including the one of the biggest touchdowns of the year, and also Aaron Jones, against his former team, like you were saying, great run defense, but put up a lot of yards against them the first matchup. Still looking for that touchdown. I think he really, really fights for it in this game. So I think as long as the Vikings can get their offense going, I'm not really worried about our defense's ability to stop that offense, especially Jordan Love with his inconsistencies. So I
Yeah,
think it's
great
going to
point,
come down
Seller.
to the
But
play of
also, I
Darnold.
want to see Jair play this game. He's been ducking,
Mhm.
JJ. But
He doesn't
also,
want the smoke.
also three in the last 5 weeks. What last 9 weeks? He's got 5 touchdowns. At least. And
Yep.
then the thing about the Vikings offense that really hurts them is their negative plays. Those holdings. OPIs or false starts. That hurts us negatively and it hurts us bad on the drive. You know what I mean? Because you'll see that we'll go 45 yards and get a hold, and then we'll punt it at fourth and 20. It's like, what are we doing? It's like they're not the same when it comes to a negative play. But we can go, if we have the first ball and we score, in 5 plays in 2 minutes. That's what I want to see every drive. But it's just eliminating those negative plays, but also keeping the big plays away from their offense. So, and then Josh Jacobs, that might be their bread and butter with him, just opening up the run game, and also Jordan Love having his ability, to either check down or throw it across the middle. Jaden Reed, Christian Watson down deep, and then another guy, Wicks, another guy,
Dobbs,
Yep.
Kraft. I mean, they got so many guys.
Kraft,
Honestly,
yeah, Kraft. It's like,
it's it's really going to be tough to guard them. I think it's like you mentioned with the holding and those self-inflicted errors. I feel like Cam Robinson's been a guy we've heard his name called a lot by the referees of late.
Yep.
Even for what was that one penalty where he's lining up behind the line of scrimmage or whatever.
Illegal formations. Yep.
Yeah, so I think just all those things are, he's a guy that's really going to be pressured. Obviously, I don't think we have as much concern with Brian O'Neill, but like over there, we gotta make sure he's really good in the guards as well, just limiting the interior pressure. But if they can do that, then I think they're in good shape. Of course, they want to hit those explosives, but we'll see how the Packers defense plays because
But
a lot of teams play the Vikings, with covering those deep routes, those over the top routes. Of late,
but
hasn't really been the case because as a result of that, T.J. Hawkinson and Jordan Addison have really good games. But as we saw last week, when you are kind of playing the Vikings defense honest, you can get hit with the over the top ball on Justin Jefferson, and he'll grit you in your face and get a get a penalty for that as well. So I feel
No
like
fun league.
yeah, no fun league, but it just depends how they play because Jordan Addison's very capable of having a really good game. We've seen him have good games against the Packers. He scored a touchdown last year.
got
I
two
think
of
he
them.
also scored one this year, right?
He got
One or
two of them on him.
one. Yeah, yeah. So I think he's a threat, and then I'd like to see this be a big game for Hawkinson as well.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like we're waiting for that breakout game to like that standard of Hawkinson that we've gotten used to. This would be a great time for it to come. But yeah, we'll have to see. It doesn't seem like I think LaFleur said that Jair's chances of playing compared to last week are not, there's no change in that. So it really is a toss up between whether he plays or not. But regardless, I mean, they have other good corners, I would say, that can cover. Maybe not as big of names as Jair, but we've seen them make plays in the playoffs last year against the Cowboys and 49ers. So I think they're a really good defense. Um, Same thing with the Vikings. They get takeaways as well. We've seen Sam Darnold in his career kind of be susceptible to that, even with the Vikings as well. So he's done a better job, I would say, of late. I don't really count that interception he threw against Seattle. That just seemed like a fourth down. Just gotta throw it, I guess.
Mhm.
But I feel like that's a key thing to watch for too, because like the Vikings are good in takeaways. But yeah, there's a lot of different matchups to look into in this game. But it would be really good if Sam Darnold, brought his best because we all want to see that big Week 18 matchup where everything's on the line. I don't have any doubts about the Lions this week beating the 49ers, so seems like that'd be the matchup, and they're going to be watching, as will the Eagles, I'm sure, just to see what happens here. Or actually, the Eagles probably play. Do they play at three or do they play at one?
Play one.
Yeah,
We we flex
They
with
got
them.
flexed out. Yeah, yeah, they got flexed out. So they play the Cowboys. So I think it's going to be a big time matchup. Um, could go either way. I've seen the Packers do damage in the Viking Stadium multiple times. Um, a lot of
Hey,
memories.
don't sleep on.
Yeah.
Hey, another team does not sleep on if they do make the wild card is the Bengals. Burrow will give you 3 touchdowns a game. So,
I mean, nobody. I don't think anybody will
The
sleep on
defense
that
will
team.
allow 6 though.
Yeah, the defense
oh
is what
yeah,
the defense is what we need to be watching out for because that
it's all right
offense.
though.
Burrow will put up his 30 points, but
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
like Dame on the early Portland days, you know. He'll get his,
80.
but you're gonna get outscored every day.
hmm What's your
But
guys' favorite? What's your guys' favorite
one
Packers Vikings matchup though, real quick, ever
uh
that you watched?
Probably us in 2012 when we won it at home with Blair Walsh, kicking
Oh,
that 55-yard
yeah,
to make
Adrian
it to the
Peterson
playoffs.
game. Yep.
Yep, to win
9 yards away, man.
the MVP. Yeah, 9 yards. Christina Pink.
Mm.
But yeah,
Maybe a
great
weird
moments.
one, but it was the overtime game that ended in a tie. I don't remember what
Uh,
year it was, but
Oh,
I was at
20,
that game in Lambeau.
2019, I want to say, or 2018.
2019.
I
Yeah,
think it
that's
was
Kirk Cousins'
earlier
first
than
year.
that.
Kirk Cousins' first year, probably 2018 then.
2018.
Yeah.
Daniel Carlson, three
Daniel
miss.
Carlson, that's after the game where he just missed
Then
and
he
we
got
cut
cut.
him. Yep. Kirk Cousins'
We set
crazy
him up,
pass
and
to
then he just
Thielen.
missed. Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
one-hander in the corner.
The Diggs fade, 2-point conversion. Damn. For
But
me, I'll just go real quick before you make your point, lad. I'm gonna say 2015 to win the division, the North in Lambeau, Teddy
mm,
Bridgewater. Very cold game. Not a lot was going for the Vikings, but that was just kind of the year that a lot was kind of new. The first, I think, second year for Zimmer, defense looked good, and I think that was the first year where we really saw the Vikings be a competitive team since like their '09 era when they had Brett Favre. So obviously it led to that Blair Walsh again, 27 yarder, whatever. But it's against Seattle the week after that. But it's all good. I mean, that was a good year of Vikings football. So that was probably my favorite matchup. But go ahead, Cittilad. What's your point?
yeah, key takeaway in this game against the Packers, definitely Aaron Jones not fumbling. If he fumbles one time during the game, which I think it will happen, just because of the nerves of the game and the implications of the game, if he does, I think he'll sit out for the rest of the game, and then Cam Akers has to come in. That's just
He
how I
didn't.
see
He
it.
didn't fumble
Just,
last week though.
but he's prone to fumbling
I
as
hear you.
of this year. You know what I mean? So it can happen. I don't know if it will happen. Let's hope not, but I see it happening, and I won't be surprised if it does happen. Let's just say that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I'd be frustrated if that happened, but I don't say I can see that happening, but I wouldn't be surprised. But
Mm-hmm.
he is the type of guy that I think like he's taking it serious, like not serious, like he's not doing that before, but it's sort of personal when he plays the Packers. Kind of
Mhm.
noticed it in the first matchup. He had what like almost 25 carries. It
200.
seemed like.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure exact number on that, but he had a lot of carries. Wasn't able to get into the end zone, but you could see the Vikings were definitely trying to feed him. And I think
He
he
was over
protected.
100 though, right?
He
Yeah.
had 90,
Mm.
and then Josh Jacobs had 51. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be trying to get into the end zone this time, and make a statement against his former team that obviously chose to go with Josh Jacobs over him, which isn't a bad decision, but he's going to want to have a big
Josh
game
Jacobs at
again.
the 1 yard line. That's an inevitable touchdown every
Yeah,
time.
no, he is
Happened the
a
last 7 weeks.
he's one of the best in the league for a reason, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame them for going after him. He's a game changing type of player, and finally with a good organization, we see that working right here. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. What else we got? We got upset pick of the week. What do you guys have for
Yeah.
that one? I'll let you guys go first.
Uh, I'll go.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Actually,
So I was like, on second thought, you can
Yeah, I
go
got
first.
mine.
Yeah, you can go first,
All
yeah,
right.
you
Tyler.
can go first.
I'm going with the Panthers over the Bucks.
Okay.
I believe the Buccaneers are like 8-point favorites in this one or something. Um, but sort of that you were mentioning the Bucks earlier, how Baker, you know, going to kind of be their demise. I think that happens this week. They lost to Dallas last week. Carolina almost won the last time these teams played. So I think it was it Hubbard that had that fumble in overtime that ended up costing them that one.
Costing them. Yeah.
So I think Carolina's momentum lately might be enough to carry them to a victory. They're not really playing for anything at this point, but just some hope for the future, I guess. But they are playing to hopefully ruin the Buccaneers' playoff chances. They won't be officially eliminated with a loss, but just about if they end up losing this one. So
Yeah, I another game, divisional game, but there's no implications. But the Jets, I got the Jets winning over
Mm,
Buffalo,
Good pick.
just
Yeah.
because that's
I thought
just
about that
because
one.
that
Yeah.
spread last week -14, and it was one score game. But yeah, they got a -9.5 favorite. So I feel like Rodgers, he's been heating up. Devontae's been really connecting. So I feel like trying to get the last two wins for them could be leading something for that organization in the offseason. So the Bills, I don't know. Josh Allen didn't look good last week, so that could carry over.
Yeah, that was a good pick. I was definitely thinking about that one. Like you mentioned, they didn't look that great versus the Patriots last week at home. So um, this could be a lot closer. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what the spread suggests. For me though, I think I'm going to go with the like Tyler mentioned the Buccaneers losing. I think I'm going to go with the Falcons upsetting the Commanders. I feel like the Commanders have a lot to play for kind of right now. They're in a
Hmm.
inexperienced position, being in that playoff spot. I still think they'll lock it up. I don't think this week. I feel like the Falcons are playing desperate. They know they have to win these games. They already have the lead right now, but it's only on a tiebreaker. So if they lose this game, it's not going to be good for them. Um, so they want to make sure they control their own destiny. If they win these next two, the Falcons are in. So I think this is a game where I can see uh, us continue to kind of see Penix play and be that mature player. He is an experienced quarterback despite not having the NFL experience. He's been around for a while in the college game and kind of saw that poise last week. And I can continue to see these guys, working well together. Um, Commanders, of course, big time win last week. Sort of game where I can see them, not understand the moment. Again, inexperienced and come out a little flat. And I could see the Falcons taking advantage of that for sure. Falcons played well last week defensively. I think Bates had an interception. Um, Defensively played well. They might have had multiple interceptions in that game. But yeah, I just feel like this is a game where the Falcons can actually win it. And to me, I think they're going to be playing a little bit more desperate in this one. So yeah, that's my pick. 4.5 point underdogs. The Falcons are. All right, guys. That
Yeah,
seems
we're about to.
seems to be everything. Unless we want to touch on anything else.
Yeah, I'm about to shut this Thursday night game off. 6-3. Like what?
Gonna be a good second half.
Mm-hmm. Hope so.
All right, guys. So that's everything for episode 108 of the Finale Podcast. Appreciate you guys coming on as always, and we'll see you guys next time. Oh, that will
Yes,
be
sir.
wild card round. So yeah, looking forward to it. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.